Let me just start recording again. Yeah, I'll just, this is what it is now. I'm showing it on screen, so let me also make maybe a quick screenshot, because the image I think might help you find it. It was a bit of a rigmarole to get the right ID, and I just didn't have much information. And then when the COVID thing struck, it was the Brightspace support wasn't really able to help quickly. So it took a while, but I'll be moving to that from now on for grading and important announcements. So let me just send you that. 1 second. By the way, how is everybody's connection quality and sound? Can you hear me okay? Okay, cool. Good to hear. It's if you need some more time, then until tomorrow is also fine. By email is fine for the outline, or you can put the outline in the Git repo. One important part is I wanted to make sure everybody has all the tools, everything in place to be working on their own Git repository as well. So that's another thing. Is there any questions still or problems with SourceTree or GitHub Desktop? I know some people from the other group had issues with SourceTree. It's a bit disappointing that SourceTree is kind of causing so many authentication issues and so on. I think part of it might be some kind of a corporate, kind of clandestine competition between Atlassian and GitHub as well. I don't want to assume, but it does feel like a lot of things happen when you just want to use one system with the other. Oh, hacked. Oh, okay. Discontinuing desk. Oh, okay. Yeah, I think there was some hack. Yeah. Well, I mean, for our use, I think it's nothing to worry too much about. But we just grab that image. Sorry, I'm just off the 3 hours, but at least I'll be my flow will be better this time. So today we'll be talking about AI navigation. So some of you will have had some exposure to things like nav meshes before, but just 1 minute. Okay, here's the image and the course name for the Brightspace. So if you could enroll yourself, I will have a look at it tonight, and if you're not enrolled and I have your ID, then I will add you. But maybe this is easier. So again, today I'd like you to clone from the master branch of our GitHub repo. That's where the starting scene for today's lecture is. So make sure you're on master branch, and there is additional branch week 10 completed. So this is if you, for example, prefer to, or you cannot really use Unity alongside, and you would prefer to maybe have the ready project and not have to copy the code or whatever. So you can also do that if that's easier for you. I would recommend starting with the master branch and cloning that, or pulling it with source tree, whatever is easier for you. Let me open the project. Like I said, nice job on the creative assignments. Most of you have put in a nice effort and some interesting approaches there as well. Actually, okay, just because I processed it before, like for example, this is a sample of the other group which was doing the assignments. So this is their work for curiosity, and I'm just going to go into maybe like one or two samples before I go into our NavMesh thing. In the meantime, make sure that you have the starting project open. Just to close the chapter on the creative assignments, so this is a sample of like, okay, this is not any of you. But I mean, it was still, kind of like an okay assignment, which was drawing an interesting little simple design. It was fine. It didn't actually specifically use a function, or it didn't use a logic operator. So for those of you who also kind of like had a little bit more like a manual approach, I gave a lot of partial credit for like the effort and for the complexity of the design and so on. So I think nobody should necessarily feel wronged there with their score. Okay, some people did do better, but let's see. Okay, it draws kind of like a infinity sign there, which is all nice and good. But let's see, there's a couple of sections of code here which are repeating, and if you have a closer look, is the screen readable in this zoom, or because this is not Nitro, so maybe let me do, this is probably, okay. Is this better? Okay, yeah, okay. Well, just keep reminding me. Okay, keep reminding me to zoom if I forget to do it. It makes my screen a mess because like I have this, the Discord on the other side and the recording. But yeah, of course, yeah. Yeah, I will be zooming in, so I'll try to just keep keep telling me. So let's have a quick look. What can we refactor here to make things a bit more succinct and easier to work with? So in this case, it would be to use a function, obviously. So let's call it. Let's say this probably draws a circle in this case. I don't kind of. So let's call it circular. Okay, we don't really need any well, actually no, we would need, because have a look here, the last these blocks of code are identical up to the last command. So this one turns to the right and this one turns to the left. So we will need a parameter and we will kind of distinguish it. So let's put a parameter in there and let's call it is right. And let's pop it in there and replace the call to the function. No, I'm not doing it the right way, sorry. Okay, I don't want the return function. Sorry, that was my bad. just to get into the habit of refactoring and wherever possible, just to make sure that the code is more readable for other reasons as well. But let's do something. And in this case, also logic operators. So it was enough just to put a true or false to for this to count as a logic operator as well. So this would have got you covered as far as functions, as far as logical operator. And this set here, we'd like to call this function, but in this case with false. When we want to turn to the left. So that's great. And one last thing. I can't reach the trash can. Okay, there you go. Is we need to take care of this last command to make sure that it is conditional. So logic and so if variables is right, I'd say majority of you have used these structures and was fine, but for those of you who didn't, I think it's worth actually like emphasizing that this is what you need to be thinking about when you create. I understand you're creating it's a creative art assignment where kind of experiment. You end up with like one long string of experiments, but after everything is said and done, it's good to. That's why it's good to like just wrap it up and clean it up. And so this is what I'm trying to do here. So if it's right, then turn right, and we need to add an else statement here as well, and then we duplicate this. So if it is not right, then we turn left, and that's it. And we've already kind of simplified this a lot, and we already hit the requirements of having a function, having a logical operator, and so on. So that was one example. A nice example, like again, I'll use the other class just not to make it put anyone in the hot spot. Is parameterization is no, I didn't want to do that. Parameterization is always a nice thing for the reason that here we have a nice flower drawing pattern, and several parameters have been exposed which allow you to experiment with this whole design using some different numbers. So being modular and being making sure that your code is reusable will help you, because then it empowers you to reuse a whole bunch of work in a way on a higher level, to maybe create more patterns like this with different parameters. It's kind of pretty common sense, but in case you needed a reminder, this is one of the reasons. Reusability and also ease of experimentation. So we're going to try to translate it to our C# experience as well as we go along, so that when you create your game code, you should think about proper code practices. But now, let's get into the interesting bits again. And we haven't talked about adding any artificial intelligence logic to our NPCs yet, and some of you might want to use functions like that. So today we'll talk about nav meshes. Now, how many of you have heard of them and have used them? Okay. All right, very good. So we'll cover two we'll cover two cases. One is kind of like a manual setup, a standard setup where you just have some level layout that you created, perhaps by hand, in the editor. And for that, Unity provides all the tools that you need already in the editor, and everything is kind of like fine. What we're trying to do here is like in some areas of our game, we want to define areas which are walkable. So any kind of NPC would be able to walk around this area, find paths from A to B, and also avoid obstacles. So maybe if we have a building somewhere on a flat plane, we don't want our artificial intelligence agents to run into it the first thing that it does. Okay. So NavMesh, this is an example here of a NavMesh generated for a procedurally generated level. So this bit of code I will give you today. I will go over what I've done there, but we won't be doing like a live coding on it. This would be a bit of torturous thing, both for me and you, I think. But this type of code is similar to what you did yourself in the tower, in the tree tower block exercise. You can kind of see that, you know, okay, we have a single block which we started with, and then it grew and spawned some branches, and this is basically what we got. The nice thing about this is that now we can turn it into NavMesh and have agents walk all around it. So I think this will be an interesting exercise and also flesh out a lot of our procedural city, and maybe some of you can use it in your game example. I'm not saying you have to, but you know, it's there for you if you want it. So let's go for our starting scene. So this is 9 nav meshes. This is the kind of yep. Okay, well, okay, well, you don't need to you don't need to fork today. So at the moment you can just start a new repository. I assume you mean source tree or Git desktop. Okay, okay, let me see if I still have it. Oh yeah. I don't use this one very often, so bear with me just a second. I can. Okay. So clone repository, github.com. Well, URL would actually work. So in this case, I'm just grabbing this. Paste the URL here and choose a path that makes sense for you. So maybe okay, in this case ut get let's say test clone or whatever. Yeah. And that's all you need to do. You don't need to fork it because you just need to pull it, and I'm not waiting for you to create a repository of your own for it. So so this is already there. Or current branch master. Let's look at the history. This is the last commit I did 12 hours ago, and tells me what I changed there. So is this what you have problems with, or? Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Oh. Did you clone though? Like because that's weird then. Maybe clone first, then fork. Well, no, no, not really, because that's a. What tells you that it's wrong though? Like, what does it do? Well, maybe. How do you know that it redirects you? Okay, once you, but like, have you made some changes and tried to push them? Sorry. Uh huh. Okay, and source tree is out of the way, because like I've never had this kind of problem with source tree. With this, okay, like I could try if maybe. Let me get back to you, okay? Or maybe we can do it because. How about toward the end of the lecture we can maybe have a look at it if we still have problems with the. I think it would be better just to kind of like start with the lecture at this stage. Are you able to clone it for yourself for now? Okay. Yeah, I'll try to help you, or DM me later and we'll sort it out. I'm kind of not sure what might be happening. Again, might be something weird with GitHub Desktop. I can, it's not really like a full-featured Git client, so maybe there's something that I don't know about. I just always found SourceTree was the one which gave me like the actual ability or power to do the obvious things. Meanwhile, GitHub Desktop, even when you want to do things like merging and whatever, like it's kind of limiting you to, or even you need to start using the command line for things like resetting to a previous commit, which sometimes you do need, fixing troubleshooting errors. Okay, we'll sort it out later, I promise. So let's get back to this. So I hope everybody has the scene open. So let's just start playing with some basic concepts there with nav meshes. So what is a nav mesh? So it's kind of like a structure, like you see, it's a surface that has a special property. It's basically has an underlying representation of a graph, which allows Unity under the hood to be able to calculate shortest paths around it. And using additional components, nav mesh agents, you can just put them in the scene and they will start moving around. If you set the destination to an agent, it will try to move across move over the nav mesh from one point to another. So let's try that now. Let's go to our models directory and let's create a couple of slope blocks. I'm just going to drop them in the center there. Maybe duplicate them. Make a couple of them and a tile. By the way, how is the bandwidth again? Like when I'm moving the screen or whatever, is there kind of like, is it very over compressed or quite blurry? Let me try 15 frames per second and see if that changes anything. Does that improve anything? Didn't make much difference. Does the frame rate, you think that it kind of like, am I really breaking up there, or it's okay? Okay. Yeah, I'd say 15 frames. Okay. Okay. Well, okay. Sure. Well, I am recording as always, so this will be posted in case like there's some bits which are really tough. So that should be like high definition. Yeah, well, we'll have to live with. I have to live with some little bit of distortion, I'm afraid. Yeah, just a bunch of blocks. Yeah, slope. Well, it's models, so I'm just dragging them into the scene. Yeah, no. This is you know, we'll use it later for our procedural generation. But at the moment, like I wanted to, okay, let's create some kind of a path. So okay, let's use kind of like a staircase approach maybe. So I'm just keeping control pressed again and just snapping to the grid here. So I'm gonna make something like this. Okay, so kind of like a tedious manual layouting of our level, basically. Let's rotate this one. I'm holding control again to snap to increments. Okay, cool. And actually, maybe let's not make it too difficult. Let's just duplicate the whole lot. Control D. Make any kind of shape you want that kind of is navigable. Oh. Just a quick check on my hard drive space. Oh no, that's not good. I'm just basically copy and pasting Control C, Control V, and now I'm gonna grab this whole set. So I'm using Shift key, Control key to like make this whole selection. I'm gonna duplicate this, and now I'm gonna move it with Control again and rotate maybe. Rotation might be awkward. We'll see what kind of pivot it comes up with. Oh yeah. So I'm not gonna mess around with this that much, but okay. What I'm gonna do is create an empty object. Sorry. I think this covers all those objects. Yeah, okay. And I'm gonna rotate the lot. The pivot is in a very terrible place, so. Oh dear. Well, anyway, I'll live with it. I'll rotate and then recenter. Bloody hell. Well, it doesn't need to be super perfect, and indeed it isn't. Okay, the important thing is now, okay, so try to come up with something like this, and then to be able to use our nav meshes, you need to make sure that they all those objects that contribute to the nav mesh are set as navigation static. So one way to do it is just to go in and just manually select all of these. Okay. Navigation static, yes, change children, as with any static selection. Now I'm going to go here in the hierarchy as well. I think there's missing out a couple. Okay. Navigation static, okay. And I'd like to have the overall floor as well marked as navigation static, which is already marked like it. I see that this whole thing is not exactly on the floor, which might be a problem. Let's see. So just move it a little bit down, and then these ones as well. Just making sure that the blocks are in touch with the floor, since we want to have a seamless navigation surface. Okay, the way to go into the AI navigation now is Window, AI Navigation, and this brings us to this editor nav mesh baking. Oh yeah, good point, thank you. Anyway, I think it would have worked, but okay, let's try this anyway. So if you go to the Bake tab, now you can see that there's already parameters for the agent that will be walking around it. So these are already set up, that the slope is 60 because we have a pretty steep slope. This is probably about 45 degrees, so we want to have something, allow something even bigger, and hit bake. And yes, magically we have a walkable surface now. So how to actually use it? No problem. We add a game object. Let's add a 3D object, a capsule. Let's put it anywhere we want in the scene. Maybe let's just shift it so it's above floor. Go to inspector. Let's scale it down to 0.5 size on all axes. Okay. And move it down to the floor again. Material, to make it stand out, pick up material called agent. Nav mesh, window, AI, navigation. So this opens this navigation tab, and when you see it, if there's a nav mesh, you will see it in blue as an overlay. If not, then hit bake. Oh, sorry. Okay, so I just created, I right click on the root object, game object, 3D object, capsule. Is that what you're asking, or? Yeah, okay. So, this agent kind of corresponds to what we have here for the navigation mesh baking. So, you know, it kind of makes sense that this object doesn't have much higher, larger radius than what we have here. But anyway, let's just carry on. What else we need on the agent? Well, we need the yeah. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. Yes, there's additional planes. There's the one for this, and there's this plane. Yeah, and I think yeah. So this one is set as static, which is fine, so this should be okay. Even if they overlap, that shouldn't make too much of an issue. Like a lot of the time you would have meshes that kind of like coincide, and it will handle it okay most of the time, I think. So yeah, so let's just test it, you know. So to this capsule, let's rename this as agent. Just agent. Oh. Yeah, and add a component, nav mesh agent. So this is a built-in component that just works with the nav meshes. Just put it up so it's easier to work with. What's important is the agent type, humanoid, and this will have to match areas break. Well, actually, in this case, it doesn't. Yeah, okay. Name humanoid. So this has to match these settings. No, no, not at the moment. Well, okay. I lied. No, no. You'll see very shortly. Yep, like so let's actually make a new script. Let's call it pursue goal. And let's add that to the agent. Okay. I'm going to move it up as well in the component hierarchy and just edit it. So to be able to use AI, we have to include Unity Engine AI namespace, and this will allow us to have a reference to the nav mesh agent. Nav mesh agent. So private nav mesh agent. Nav agent, and in start function we're going to populate that, grab that component, so the same way we always do. Get component, nav mesh agent. Okay. Okay, and after that, let's actually specify a transform for the goal. So let's make a public transform field called goal. And here, when we have our nav agent reference, actually, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, good point. Shout at me whenever I'm leaving it like this. I should be more mindful. Yeah, I know. Is this workable? I mean, it's a little less works as well, or okay, it must be really bad. Well, I'm sorry for that. Okay. Okay, so nav agent, get component nav agent, and now we can set the destination field of the nav agent, and this expects a world space position. So let's take that transform and its position, and that's actually all that you need. Okay, were you able to copy the code? I'll give you a minute. Alright, so just this nav agent reference, and then set its destination to the goal position. Well, let me save that and try it. Everybody happy? Can I go ahead? Sorry. It's a bit with the 2 monitor display setup. The zooming is really not optimal. Cool. There is a finished version of this project, like I said. I think I said here on week 10 completed. So you can also, at the end of it, you can pull and you'll have the whole finished project. We won't be doing a lot of live coding, so no worries. We'll just do a couple of scripts. Okay, so pursue goal. Okay. And let's give it some kind of a goal. So here in nav meshes, I'm gonna create a new sphere, just a blank sphere, and I'm gonna place it somewhere here. Actually, you know what? Let's put it somewhere here, and let's make this a bit more interesting. Since I changed the geometry, my nav mesh now doesn't include this new geometry, so that needs to be rebaked. So go to bake again and bake it. Cool. So now I'm going to agent in inspector. I will give this sphere as goal for the agent. Okay, and let's see what happens. Okay, it's problematic because it didn't really hit the nav mesh. So let's see what happens if I run it again. No, so that's not what we want really. Let's see. It's possible. Oh yeah, okay. It's possible that my settings are incorrect and it's not able to make that reach that position. So let's keep working on that. I'm gonna reduce the agent height. Radius. Okay, there might be something going on there. Agent. Yeah, it could have some. Oh, okay, I can see that there's some problem happening here. That's for sure. So maybe I do need to elevate the floor after all. I'll just move the floor a little bit, and that hopefully will resolve the issue. I don't know if that's what the issue is yet. Okay. Let's try it now. Okay, so that was the case indeed. So in this case, I set the destination in the start method and pursue goal. What if we move it to update? What do you think is going to happen? It will still work. Yeah, just in case it's a dynamic object and we want to move it around. That should be interesting. Could be the player. So we're initiate this thing, yeah, and then we we can make right full of it. But it's actually quite sensible in what it's doing. So it's always picking the shortest path, at least it kind of appears like it's more or less okay. Now your question about the rigid body, yes indeed, here it would make sense to have something there to block it, but that's also why you have this parameters agent height. So it's set very low. What if I increased it to 1? Let's see what will happen with our bake. So agent height to 1. This would mean that this nav mesh we cannot. Yeah. Okay. So let's try. So you can see now that these areas became inaccessible. So these are quite important parameters there. So now it's not doing these weird things. It's not traveling underneath because we've set up our height correctly. Okay. So that's a static case. That's all fine and dandy, but we know we have a procedural level that we'll be working on. So, so what if our level is generated on the fly? So our nav mesh baking in editor is useless. What if there is situation changes and a tree falls on the road, for example, or a new path opens when you complete a subquest? You know, these are all kind of quite common use cases. So unfortunately for that you need an external component. It's also maintained by Unity. It's called NavMesh component, but you actually have to pull it from a GitHub repository. So this is a link you can click to go directly there. So this is where it's maintained. It also has its documentation. It provides you with a couple of scripts which do give you, especially NavMesh surface. This is the one that you need, the component that you need to be able to rebake NavMeshes on the fly. The other ones are maybe not necessarily useful today, but interesting to know about them. This one allows you to link different NavMeshes, or maybe make like teleport transitions between them or within one. And the modifiers are for setting up different types of areas like danger zones. So maybe if your project has a requirement for a lava pool or something that changes or whatever, then maybe these are worth looking at. For now we'll just stick with the basic application. So NavMesh surface. In this project I've already added them, so if you look in the assets directory, the NavMesh components has some scripts, so these are the components we're talking about, and some editor hooks, so that this has some kind of user interface to it to help us. So let's try to use it. Let's clear this bake that we have already. So let's remove that. Let's close this window. We won't be using it for a while. And we can also remove this geometry that we've made. We kind of don't need it anymore. Let's make a prefab out of our agent, since we already did a little bit of work. Okay, so save it for later, and let's remove the agent and the scene from the sphere from the scene. What's this? Okay. Alright. So I've created a couple of new scripts for us, and they're also using recursion, so maybe not your favorite, but I think this one will demonstrate how powerful this approach actually is. Oh, actually, yeah, okay, I'll get to it later. So what I'd like to have now, remember the tree tower block where we grew out our building. We'd like to do the same thing for roads, in a way. So we start with a single tile. This first tile grows in all four directions to create like a crossroads. And then, based on random selection, we either put a staircase up, staircase down, maybe another straight segment, and sometimes we also make a turn. So I won't go into like a huge amount of detail. And also, by the way, guys, do you want to break now, or let's carry on for now? Well, anybody shout, or maybe give me a shout on the text channel as well, if you want me to take a little break. But yeah, okay. Let's do. Which script would you like, John? This pursue goal? Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Yep, this is. Yeah, thank you. Okay, I'll leave it like that, and see you in 5 minutes. Sorry.